how he played. The way I was feeling was Leeds had controlled the half, yet somehow Salford looked more dangerous or more entertaining, more enterprising, probably is the best word to use. Like every time Salford did get something going, they looked like they could score.
The threat was clearly there.
Yeah,
and they clearly showed that they'd thought about how to get to the try line, and that was how they were going to score. They'd obviously done a lot of work in preparation. Certainly from the coaching side, they had some plans that were going to be successful for them, and they executed on that fairly well. That they looked threatening, and they could. I think 3 tries to 2 probably would have been reflective of the effort, but we were there or thereabouts.
But it set it up nicely at 12-6, I think, for the second half, and then came the 2 or 3 big collisions in the first 2 minutes of the second half, with Adam Cuthbertson picking up his elbow injury that he didn't recover from, and we had Tyrone McCarthy, didn't we, getting a head knock, but he wasn't able to come back into things for Salford's perspective. But at that stage, Salford started to gain some initiative in the game. It seemed like the field had at least levelled up, if not tilted back in their direction. And I think when you got Paulie running at the try line at full pace, it tilts the pitch somewhat, doesn't it? And he went over in the 53rd minute, but Inu crucially missed what for him was a kickable goal.
Gone for me.
I thought it was Lee.
And it got to 12-10, didn't it, at that stage? So Paulie's try, 12-10, you're still ahead, John, but what are you feeling at this, or fearing at this stage?
Yeah, sorry, you broke up a little bit there, but that's it. I think it was really well worked by Salford to really single out Gale to be the defender against Paulie, which is, a little unfair. I was wondering whether Leeds were waiting for the dummy half scoot and try and dive over to say defender in the middle and left him a bit exposed on the edge, and then as you said, Paulie just kind of ran over and scored that. And I was a bit worried because I thought that the energy had gone a little bit, and there were some mistakes creeping in, and Salford were really starting to kind of not give up, to be honest, and not go away. So it was starting to get a little nervy. And also because there's still that kind of feeling, although Leeds have done quite well in the last sort of month, 6 weeks maybe, of being resilient and coming back from behind, against Hull in the league. And I think Wigan scored first in the semi as well, didn't they? And Leeds kind of stuck with it and come back with it. Still that like untested kind of side to it, and it's still a new side that hasn't got a great pedigree of winning loads of things and things like that. And thinking, are they just going to kind of bottle it?
Well, talking of bottling it, Richie Myler's one big error in the game, only error in fact, really, came very much next when he didn't opt to try and take a high kick from Lola here. The kick bounced, landed happily in Joey Lussick's hands, who put it through to James Greenwood, who went in to score and put Salford into the lead, 16-12 on the 58th minute. Tim, like Lee said, was that too early?
Well, yeah, in hindsight, it looks like, but to me, it looked at the time like this was the point where they took control of the game and they were coming in and they were going to score a couple more. I think Lolohea had kind of imposed himself on the game a bit and shown up in the last sort of 5 minutes or so of that. And I think that try cemented that. It looked like they were going to get on a roll at that point and score a couple more quite quickly and quite comfortably.
But it didn't happen like that because Leeds managed just to level the scores at 16-all with Ash Hanley's second try in the 65th minute. And again, good play from Richie Myler in the build-up, John. He made up for his mistake by being the man who delivered the offload.
Yeah, exactly. I think that mistake for fielding that kick, he just couldn't. It was just a little shorter than he was expecting. He couldn't quite get. That's when it bounced off his knees, wasn't it? Because he just couldn't quite get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and as you said, one mistake, and then as quick as you like, he's back in the line doing what he's done really, really well, and putting Ash Handley in.
16-all with 15 minutes left. Inevitably, the commentators started to talk about drop goals, other than Robbie Hunter-Paul, who for some reason was brought in to make a comment around this stage of the game that just added no value to the coverage.
Did he do anything else in the whole show?
Well, to be fair, he's not allowed to walk on the pitch anymore. So what's his function? If he can't walk on the pitch and annoy people, there's not much else he can do. He did join in the World Cup talk before, but even then he sort of forgot to talk about New Zealand until they prompted him. So I don't know if he was all right, but it was quite bizarre.
Well, they already had a different, like a sideline person for each team. I'm not sure. He was probably trying to figure out why he was there. But it
was one of those things that they obviously had so many passes they were allowed, and anyone they could get in, they did, because it was the only chance they were going to get. So if they were there, they had to have a microphone in front of them.
But after he explained that basically both teams still had to play the rest of the game and one of them would win, we then started to have the drop goals. But around that time, I think just before the Ash Hanley try, John, was when Leeds switched it up and the Dwyer interchange happened, didn't it? So did that give maybe Leeds a bit of the energy in the push? Did that, combined with bringing Alegi and Sam Manafing, who started the game well, back into things? Do you think Alegi and Dwyer helped redress that energy battle that you think you were losing then, and start to set a platform for some drop goal attempts?
Yeah, definitely. You know, one of the few notes I made was energy late on, and it seemed to sort of be re-galvanised and strengthen up a little bit. When did Briscoe go off? Because that kind of involved a backline reshuffle, didn't it? And I think that maybe kind of contributed to Leeds' unsettledness as well. But yeah, I think Dwyer adds that spark. I think Leeming's solid and gets the forwards moving and building a platform, but Dwyer's got that kind of little bit of extra to really kind of worry defences and get things going quickly.
Yeah, I'd completely forgotten about Briscoe going off for a head check. I think it was...
he just came down funny from jumping up to catch a ball and banged his head, I think, didn't he?
I think it was in the build. I think it was in the first 10 minutes or so of that second. I think it was off when Paulie scored, I think. And maybe Green was as well. He might have made a call for that kick. So you're right, yeah. It swung back. Luke Gale missed a field goal attempt. And then possibly the most controversial moment of the game on around about the 75th minute. The lots of people have talked about it in the fan views, the penalty against Paulie for incorrectly played. Well, not the penalty, it was a scrum award, but obviously we don't have those now. So turnover of possession because of Paulie not playing the ball correctly. Anyone got a view on this one?
It's tough, isn't it? It's I mean, as in it's a hard call, not it's just tough.
It's one of those ones that, as people have called out, that you could look either side of it, and you could examine probably about 40 to 50 play the balls in that match that were as bad, if not worse.
Yeah.
So why you're picking that one up at that point in the game? I mean, it was a bold call from Liam Moore, and I don't have issue with the call and making it, but it just seems slightly odd that he chose that one to be the one he picked up on and not any of the others. It just, if you're going to do that, then you need to almost, that's the sort of thing you set early to say, I'm not going to take this. But to get into that late, and I don't know, we didn't hear him warn them, so it wasn't like he'd said, you've had there's one that was a bit dodgy, keep going. So we didn't hear that, so it just seems a little bit harsh, as I think. I wouldn't say it's a ref's fault. I wouldn't say it's anything too egregious. I think it's just slightly harsh. It was a
correct decision for the play that it was called on. It's just, was it a correct decision for the time of the game and the way the rest of the game maybe was officiated, I suppose, is what people can somewhat legitimately question. The challenge comes because there was a Matt Pryor one, wasn't there, in the next set that people are claiming was the same.
But if you flip it round, if he'd let that one go, would anyone have noticed? Probably not. So therefore, that sort of tends to say that it was probably on the harsh side. That had you seen that, and would anyone have been, if there was a crowd in, for example, would anyone have been screaming the rafters down for that? Probably not.
If I was a Leeds fan, I would have been shouting that he hadn't played it properly. Because, and I'll tell you why, what I think was different to this one than some of the other ones. Because in general, I think the play of the ball was quite tidy in terms of the way the ball was played by the players. It wasn't the speediest
It was quite a quick game, wasn't it? Overall,
the game was intense, but it wasn't super fast. But I think that was more to do with, in particular, Leeds' forwards defending the middle of the field in a controlled way than anything the referee was doing. But what was the particular difference about this one, and I think what made him instinctively blow up and probably regret doing, was that Paulie hit the deck, didn't he? So he played the ball, he went to play the ball, didn't get anywhere near it with his feet, and then fell forwards. The one just after with Matt Pryor, although it looked very similar in that he didn't play the ball correctly with his foot, like on many instances in the game as well, he'd got to his feet and he stayed up after he didn't play the ball, whereas Paulie didn't stay on his feet. So I think instinctively referees in that situation feel they have to make a decision, and the decision he made was that Paulie hadn't regained his feet properly because he was trying to get too quick a play of the ball. And in most instances, in most Super League games, we would see that given as this. But I think it showed Liam Moore's inexperience of dealing with really vital matches. Because
you've gone for me.
Oh, have I? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I can't hear anything now. I can eat.
Because it's 75 minutes. It shows Liam Moore's inexperience, doesn't it? A bit in dealing with big matches.
We missed a lot of that, Mark. Sorry, you broke up.
Yeah, I didn't get any of that point.
I mean, this is going to be fun to edit. Or I'll just leave it in. So, probably the listeners might hear it because it's recording on my end. You guys haven't, I don't know. But I'll say it again. The one thing it highlighted to me was Liam Moore's inexperience in big matches, in big moments.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and it's that old situational awareness probably leads you to think that you can see other officials, potentially, perhaps those that are not no longer active, possibly would have managed that a bit differently, and perhaps, having spoke to the captains or particular players at the next natural stoppage, but possibly not calling it out then.
Yeah, let the play go, but say be careful with your play of the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I've got no issue with the actual decision. I just think, in terms of whether it's correct or not, I just think in the game at that time, you probably get in 75th minute, you're getting to swallow your whistle time as a referee in a big game, but Liam Moore hadn't done a big game before.
And, he's 25. To have that little contribution, this is all we're talking about in regards to him, shows that he did, on the whole, have a very good game.
But Luke Gale kicked the drop goal. What did that mean to you at that stage, John? Did you think that was glory with only 4 minutes left, or were you still a bit tense?
No, it was. I can't remember at what stage, but I just kind of thought this is Luke Gale drop goal all day long, and I've kind of been a bit sort of anti Luke Gale since he signed, because I always kind of had the impression that he sort of disappears in big games at key moments and things like that. But more recently, he's really stood up, and I just knew it wasn't. I think the story was there, the narrative was there, that it was just that was what was going to happen, and there was nothing that Salford could do to get away from it.
But Salford did have a chance. They got the ball back, and I think way more significant than the penalty was when Salford had their own opportunity, Tim. They had sort of set a platform for potentially kicking a drop goal, but then Chris Ninu saw some space, went for the space. What he didn't see was Chris Wellham on his outside with a potential run into the corner, Also, what he didn't see was that it was a fourth tackle, so if he'd have held the ball rather than trying to get a loose offload away that led to a knock-on, there was another chance for Salford still if he'd have